We're talking today with Mike Banno of Muskegon, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Okay, so Mike, we begin at the beginning. Where and when were you born?
1984, right here in West Michigan. Grew up in Caledonia.
Okay, and what was your family doing for a living when you were a kid?
My dad was a tool and die guy. Got into that stuff when he was real young. Mom kind of did some odd jobs around the house and mostly supplemented and stayed at home.
Okay.
Made sure that my brother and I didn't become degenerates.
All right, and so did you finish high school?
Yes.
And when did you graduate?
2002.
Okay, now by then 9/11 has happened. Do you remember how you learned about 9/11?
Yeah, I walked into first class and just nothing was going on. The whole school was shut down and there was just a weird atmosphere around it, and all the TVs around, no one was talking. It was super emotional, and it was just weird, very just surreal, and just nothing really happened that day in school. I just kind of like trauma bonded over it.
Okay, and then when do you actually go into the service?
It wasn't until 2003, so it was about a year after high school, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. At the time, I was just working one part-time job at UPS, just kind of post-high school, getting my life together, figuring out what's next.
Now, in the meantime, had you sort of paid attention to what was kind of going on, with Afghanistan, and you had a build-up going on to go into Iraq and so forth as well? Did you follow that, or just mind your own business?
I was kind of just stayed in my own lane, figuring out what I wanted to do. I didn't do a lot of research on it. The military became an option just because I was considering going to school for something beyond just normal gen ed stuff in high school. I had started developing an interest in photography at the time and thought maybe I'll get more professional training in that.
Okay, and did you expect you could get professional training in that in the military, or was the military going to be a GI Bill ticket to college?
Yeah, that was it. I was just looking for the financial component assistance for school. So.
Okay, and so what time of year was it when you actually go to enlist?
I shipped out in May, but it was a few months prior to that. I was in a delayed entry program.
Okay.
While they basically got people organized.
So you're enlisting early in '03?
Yeah.
Okay, so probably before we actually went into Iraq?
Right.
Okay, all right. But that stuff didn't really have much to do with your decision to go in?
Right, it was more just, it affected me, definitely, but it wasn't, I won't say it was like I have to go do this now overnight, but it definitely was on my radar a little bit. So.
Okay, all right. Now, which service branch did you pick?
Marine Corps.
Okay, and why did you pick them?
Figured if I was going to do something difficult, I'd go big or go home. They seemed like they had programs out there for me for school and things like that made sense.
Okay, and then once you actually sign up, what happens next?
In my case, I was in what they call the delayed entry program. Essentially, it's, hey, we're going to get you ready. It's a bit of a process and a workup for it. So they do a good job of educating you and figuring out what to expect when you get there, so you're not a total deer in headlights, which, Marine Corps boot camp is kind of that anyway, but.
Okay, and when you enlisted, were you enlisting to be in the Marine Corps Reserve or active duty?
I was a reserve unit.
Okay.
My goal was to, hey, I'm going to go to school, going to toughen up a little bit, get some life skills and level up a little bit.
Okay, so then when do you start boot camp?
That was May 3rd of 2003.
All right, and where do they do that?
San Diego, California.
Okay, and when you get out to San Diego, did you fly out there?
Yeah, we flew out there. We got there real early. Had to have been damn near 4 in the morning.
Okay, and what happens when you get off the plane?
You're already sleep deprived. You're just kind of shuffled one place to another, and then before you know it, you're on the famous yellow footprints and just getting screamed at for 3 months straight.
Okay, some of the guys from different eras talk about how they take like 45 minutes or whatever in the bus to get them there, even though the base is right next to the airport. Do you remember how long that trip was, or does that not stick with you?
It was just kind of like I feel like this is taking longer than it should because I thought we were close by, but it's just part of the whole chaos and fog atmosphere. It's like you go in the bus, they turn the lights off, they sit down, shut up, don't look at anything, don't talk. It kind of feels like you're going to prison.
Yeah, and then the bus actually pulls up into the base, and then what happens?
And then doors fly open, and the drill instructor immediately is like, get off my bus, boom, 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 and it's immediately just like, there's zero introduction to it. It's like jumping into an ice bath.
Yes, okay. And they had yellow footprints painted out there on the pavement. You're all supposed to stand on them.
Yep, that was
Okay.
like the first organization of like, get here, get in line, get organized, get ready to.
Okay. Did you know what to expect when you went in? Had anyone told you about what it might be like?
Yeah, I had a good recruiter. He was able to let me know. I mean, he had been in, I mean, ended up retiring. He was a career recruiter. He
Okay.
spent 16 of his 22 years as a recruiter, so he did a good job of educating and not really, I wouldn't say he sugarcoated it, because that just kind of sets you up for failure if you're going to fluff it up a bit. But
Okay. But it wasn't a total surprise.
right, and
Yeah.
they all said, oh, it's going to be more mental than anything, which at the time I was like, yeah, right, I've never done this sort of stuff physically, but hindsight, it really was. So
Okay, so they yell at you first, and you're standing out there, and then what else do they do by way of processing you before you really start training?
yeah, the whole receiving process is pretty long and drawn out. I mean, you end up being awake for what feels like about 72 hours. You know, it's a lot of paperwork, crossing T's, dotting I's, getting medical stuff ready. You know, you go through a gauntlet of like immunizations and getting updated and getting poked with a stick. And then they do that specifically too, to weed you out, to make sure you're not hiding information that might bar you from enlisting. And that's really for your own safety. And if you withhold medical information that somehow makes you more injured later or endangers people around you, so they got to kind of weed you out a little.
Okay. All right, so you're going through that, and you get uniforms and all that kind of stuff, and then how do they organize you or group you? So a bunch of you guys come in. Do you get put into the same platoon, or you split up in different groups, or?
At a high altitude, essentially, it's all just divided up alphabetically.
Okay.
I enlisted with a buddy of mine, and his last name starts with J, mine starts with B, so they split us up. And it's supposed to be this whole buddy program thing, but they go in there and say, do you want to be partnered up? And I was like, I wasn't about to ask for any favors. I was like, nope, I'm just going to stay in my lane and figure it out. So like, we didn't get to go through it together. Like, we saw each other occasionally, because like there had to have been 4 or 5 different companies, you know,
Okay.
of just different areas, and each one is a whole squad bay of people. You know,
Okay.
I mean,
So about how many in each company do you think?
I want to say probably 60, 70. It's
Okay.
kind of thins out a little over time. Sometimes things happen where people get delayed in program for like an injury or something like that, or worst case scenario. And unfortunately, sometimes people drop out and they can't complete boot, so sometimes their ranks kind of thin out over time, which is interesting.
Okay, so about how many of the people that you started with finished with you?
I'd say a decent chunk of them. We probably 3/4 of the people we started with were
Okay.
finished with. So
Okay. So what now is the actual training process like?
a lot of regimen, everything was very structured. You know, sometimes you don't know why you're doing things, but you have to do it fast and intensely. And that's the whole thing. That's what they're trying to do, is get you to adhere to strict discipline beyond reasoning first. It's just, you're just wiping off the slate. You know, you got to start fresh.
Okay. And so what different things are they teaching you in terms of the actual trainings? I mean, there's a general thing of learning to follow orders and doing it automatically.
Right.
But then beyond that, physically, what are you doing?
A lot of stuff with PT, like running, physical stuff, running push-ups, a lot of push-ups. Obstacle courses, things like that on the physical side. But in between there was also, you know, nurturing the mind too. You know, a lot of military history, Marine Corps specific history, learning rank structure. A lot of it was so just welded together. It was hard to differentiate, because sometimes you'd be in a very physical day, and then it would shift to, you know, we're doing classroom type work. It was kind of always keep you on your toes.
Okay, so how long were the days?
It was hard to tell. I didn't really have a timepiece, and I think they specifically don't keep watches around, but I mean, they had to have been, 10, 12-hour days easy. I mean, you're up with the sun, and you go down at dusk, you know. Just
All
kind of
right.
running and gunning all day.
Okay. Now, what kind of shape were you in when you went in?
I had to have been maybe 230 pounds, so I was like not overweight, but not in super fit shape either. You know, I started on one of the other things my recruiter did is like, you know, every week we're going to do workouts together, you know, to help you get acclimated. So I had been kind of getting myself ready a little bit, so I wasn't totally caught off guard.
Okay. Were there some people coming in who really weren't in good shape or needed a lot of work?
Yeah, you definitely see that. And people coming from all different places and times of their life. So in physical attributes were all over the board. And then there would you could tell that there were some people that got specific attention. Some people would put on like double rations if they were, you know, scrawny little guys. They'd make them bulk up and eat a ton. And then other people, they'd be like, they'd call you a fat body. Like, oh, you're going to get on restricted diet. They make you feel bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the whole thing. You get picked on right from day one.
So what happens to you if you screw up in training somewhere?
You get yelled at more. They have this thing called IT, intensive training, where essentially it's just like, go here and do this, do what I tell you to until I tell you to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And often it's to get on your face and push, and physical motivation behind helping you remember what you just did that got you there.
Did they ever do collective punishments, where one guy screws up, they punish the whole unit?
Oh yeah, that was the big thing. And that. I mean, when you're in it, you don't see it, but in hindsight, you see like, this is the accountability portion. Like, how quick, what's the fastest way to get a group of people to get to know each other? Put them all on the same page, you know? You're a complete stranger, and then all of a sudden you're paying for his mess up. You know, creates some tension sometimes, but usually you come out of it stronger.
Okay. Now, in boot camp, do you get any weapons training?
Yeah, it was, God, it had to have been, I'm trying to remember when we actually got it, because yeah, like every Marine is a infantryman at the end of the day. You have your specific MOS, but like that's part of the reason why Marine Corps boot camp is so long, is you get a significant amount of actual infantry type training. And I mean, it's tip of the iceberg, I found out, because I went into, my MOS was infantry. So after boot camp, we got a lot more deeper into all that. But
Okay. So how long was boot camp?
3 months.
Okay. Now, did you do all that in San Diego, or did you go out to Camp Pendleton at all, or?
Yeah, Camp Pendleton is super close by. There's 3 different phases.
Mm-hmm.
So second phase of boot camp is more like field work, so we get a little bit further out, deeper into Camp Pendleton, where we're doing a little bit more of that infantry type stuff, where it's less drilling and discipline type stuff. I mean, you're still doing that, but it's more grab your pack and we're hiking 5-6 miles over here, and then we're doing a bunch of dirty work in the dirt. So.
All right. So you get to the end of that phase. Okay. Now what do you do next? Do you get more infantry training after that?
You get into doing a little bit more of like your rifle qualification. That was a pretty significant portion of everything, because that kind of wraps up, if I remember right, towards the end of that phase 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once you're a little bit more familiar with interacting with and keeping track of your weapon and taking it apart and cleaning it, because that's obviously a big part of what you do too, to make sure that it's functional and working the way you need it to. And we come back and we do the whole rifle qualification. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 days. And that's like really the only time the drill instructors kind of calm down a little. Because I mean, you are working with live ammunition. I think they understand the psychological component of, you know, everyone's seen Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't want that to happen.
Right.
So, I mean, that's like the only time I specifically remember, because I actually have pretty bad eyesight, and I had to wear these big giant goggles. They call them BCGs, the birth control goggles, because you look so heinous wearing them. No one will ever go near you. You got these big Gomer Pyle Coke bottles. And I still remember they let me call home and get a set of contacts, so I had good vision, so I had good rifle scores, so everybody looked good. Because collectively, I'm sure that they're graded on that stuff to make sure, because it's up to them to teach you how to be a good shot, you know.
Right. Okay. So that's the end of phase 2 of boot camp. Okay. Yeah. What was phase 3?
Phase 3 is a lot more of the knowledge-based stuff. Now you're kind of starting to come into your own of, you walk like a Marine, you look like a Marine, let's get you to that final spot, you know. So a lot of the drill stuff, the discipline stuff, the mental sharpness of it all, and uniform stuff, weapons maintenance.
Okay. And then, okay, so once you complete the boot camp, what's the next step for you? Or do you just, you're a reservist, do you go back home, or do you get more infantry training before you leave?
Yeah, so everyone gets like a 10-day block of leave, so that's how everyone kind of comes out. I mean, my family came out to see me, so we spent like 2 days in California, because I don't think they'd ever actually been there. So it's kind of cool. We treated it like vacation. Mom, dad, brother were there.
Yeah.
Came home, kind of did family stuff, caught up with everyone I haven't seen in a while. No one recognized me. Everyone wanted to see the uniform and hear about it. It was just, it went by like that. It was crazy.
Okay.
Then I went back to, for 2 more months. That was my actual MOS training. So I went to my School of Infantry. So picking up where we left off in boot, and then it starts to peeling back some layers, getting a little bit more deeper into those things.
Okay. So describe some of the exercises and things that you did in that training.
A lot of it was specifically like urban type combat, not just this is how this thing works, this is how you implement it with a group of other people. So moving together, clearing buildings, going through patrols, learning all those things. Communication styles, like whether your hand signals or verbal, that there's a very specific way of doing everything. So trying to sharpen that muscle memory so that everybody's on the same page.
Did any of it seem to be geared toward possibly going to Iraq or Afghanistan?
I would think definitely some of it. I mean, the urban type, it's different than like jungle type warfare than we saw in Vietnam. Obviously, not we, I was too young for that, but you understand. So yeah, definitely training took a shift towards like that. We might be in and out of buildings in an urban environment.
Okay. And now what range of weapons did you learn to use?
M16 was standard for boot camp. I mean, everyone's got that rifleman training. Once you get into your MOS, then it gets broken down a little bit more. Like as an infantry guy, I was assigned an M249 SAW, so I was like a machine gun guy. But there's different MOS. There's 0331. Those are your dedicated machine gunners, so they get bigger machine guns. They get to play with some of the higher speed stuff. Like 0351, for instance, is assaultmen. They get to play with C4 and shape charges, and they figure out, how do we get into this building with no door? Well, we're going to make one. So as a 0311, M16 249 SAW was most of my experience.
Okay, but did you get to use any of the others or try them out or get familiar with them at all? Or
oh yeah, we would dink around with all those because like you got to get training with them. So like grenade launchers, things like that. Some of the stuff I remember seeing but didn't really get to play with. But like get into like explosives and things like that. So
okay, so you do that for 2 months. Now, is there a difference in how you're treated between boot camp and this more advanced training?
yeah, because essentially like now you're in. Now you're in the boys club. Now you're a Marine. And then so comes with accountability, so sometimes good, sometimes bad. Sometimes you learn the hard way and you get chewed out for it, and it's a little bit different type of discipline than boot camp because now it matters. Like now you're a functional part of this unit, and now you're not just in training anymore.
All right. Now, are there any particular aspects of that round of training that sort of stand out in your memory, or?
Definitely remember it feeling a little bit more real. It was a lot of similar stuff that I remember from boot camp, but it just somehow felt different because it was like, you felt like you kind of earned your place there, and now you got to kind of have some skin in the game, and it's starting to feel real. That's like getting a new job. It takes a minute to get acclimated.
Okay. Did they do any sort of like escape and evasion training or anything like that?
Not that I really recall. Okay. Most of it was moving together as a unit and figuring out how to clear buildings and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So it kind of geared toward what you were likely to wind up doing in the places where you might actually go.
Right.
Because the escape and evasion was a big thing for Vietnam for a variety of reasons, and probably the certain elite units, Ranger SEAL type people do that, but you did not. Okay. All right. So you finished that. Now, as a reservist, then do you just go home?
Yeah. After that, you go to your unit. So I had to go to Lansing to kind of check in and figure out who's in charge there and let them know who I am, and then you get the lay of the land and meet the new people and your chain of command in that space. And then it transitioned into a little bit more of a calmer, once a month you go to your drill weekend. At that time I'd started exploring and getting enrolled in school, so when I wasn't out doing training I had my normal civilian job and I would go to school.
Okay. Now what unit did you join?
I was 124 Charlie Company out of Lansing, Michigan.
Okay, so that was an infantry unit?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we were discussing before the interview, let's see, was that a battalion or a regiment? Because the unit designations that we've got for a lot of the reserve and guard units are often left from like World War II vintage.
Sure.
So Grand Rapids had the 126th Infantry Regiment, and 124 was probably a regiment, but sometimes they just changed the size of the unit. So you're not quite sure, but you were in Charlie Company, and that would be, originally there would have been only one of those even in the regiment, so whatever. But Charlie Company, 124th Infantry. And then what kind of mix of people did you have in that unit?
Oh, all different kinds. I was kind of in and out pretty quick, so like a lot of those friendships didn't go super deep. But the guy that I joined with, I knew from high school, he was there with me too, so that was kind of nice to be able to catch up. So like we went in together, we separated, then after that, and then we reattached
Okay.
together. So
And then, like, how old were the guys there? Did you have some senior sergeants who
yeah.
went back a long way, or?
See, I remember turning 20 in boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell anyone about it though.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we had some older guys, some senior enlisted that were there, and some of the guys were getting into like, I'd say, late 30s, early 40s.
Mm-hmm. And any of them been in the Gulf War, or?
I believe some of them, yeah.
Okay, but probably nobody who would go back as far as Vietnam.
No.
No.
I mean, there might have been some like the upper brass. I remember
Mm-hmm.
seeing like some of the older guys might have been around from that time frame, but
Yeah, it's mostly not. Okay, and so what's your what's your standard training like when you do your drill weekends or whatever they have? What's that like?
a lot of it was a lot of that similar like urban style combat. I remember we occupied an entire abandoned building in Toledo for all weekend. It was like across the street from a bank, and I still remember like civilians like, what are they doing? Like they thought something was wrong because we're walking around in the streets, broad daylight in Toledo with weapons and stuff. We did most of what we did inside of it had to have been a 15-story building, but we just kind of occupied it, and we would just find different spots in there to unfold or lay out all our training and things like that.
All right, so when you're in a place like that, you're not actually blowing anything up.
No, yeah, it's if anything, they would sometimes give us blanks for training, but because we were like right downtown, they were like, "Now we're just gonna be simulated. We're not gonna give you ammo for this. We're not gonna spook the general population that bad." So,
Okay. Did you do training at any point where you actually got to do more of that? I mean, you did that one in Toledo. Where else would you train?
it was like different every weekend, and we'd go up to Grayling every now and then. Those were a little bit less urban because a lot of times you get out there and you don't have the whole building to go clear, but we'd make do. They all kind of run together, but the Toledo one I remember very specifically because there's like no electricity. It was somehow colder in that building than it was outside. It was just an interesting scenario.
All right. And let's see. And then I think you had mentioned that did you get back out to California at some point? Or?
No, not for any training stuff.
Okay.
Once I was attached to that reserve unit, that kind of is where I held out the remainder of my time there. We did activate and they did deploy us, but I had been experiencing some physical issues that I kind of didn't have time to really look at seriously. But once I finally did, I ended up having this slipped disc in my lumbar, and it was causing a sciatic nerve pinch. So like if I moved my neck just right, my leg would hurt. And I remember thinking, I'm in like the best shape of my life after all this Marine Corps training. Like what's going on? Something's not right. So I finally go get an MRI, and they're like, yeah, your hardware's all messed up. So as a result, they told me I couldn't deploy, which kind of started me down a path of like feeling really like, what are you talking about? I just got here. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Fast forward, they end up deploying. Some of those guys don't come back. Some get hurt, and started me down a path of feeling like, what about me? What was I supposed to do? I was begging them to let me do something. At that time, I was exploring different MOS jobs. I was like, well, if I can't be an infantry guy with a bad back, I understand, but let me do something else. Just the way it ended up shaking out for me is there were no openings. I couldn't do it. I ended up getting medically discharged as a result and never really doing much. So I was like, okay, what now? And I didn't really have any support at the time, and I was too young to understand how it all works. But once you're done, there's like, kind of just felt like they were like, all right, later. And I just didn't really know what to do. So I had a lot of survivor's guilt. I struggled with it because I thought I was supposed to do so much more.
And you sort of missed that. So,
Yeah.
so now, so you're discharged. Do they do anything to kind of support you in transition, or because you hadn't deployed anywhere, they don't worry about that?
Well, the information I was given is you didn't deploy, so you don't get anything, which I later found out was very incorrect. And I just, because I felt guilty about it, I was like, okay, cool, fine, whatever. I didn't want to take things away from people that earned it more than I did. Like, I know now differently, like how all that works, but it took years for them to acknowledge that maybe my back problems are their fault.
Okay. So at that point, they diagnosed your back problem when you were in the Marines.
Yeah.
Did they treat it at that time or do anything for you, or just tell you, oh, you have this, so you can't do anything else?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I needed a lumbar laminectomy when I was only 22 years old, which then I spent about a year on a 10-pound weight restriction. So get back to the unit, and they're just like, what did you do in here? You're on light duty. And then so they kind of made me feel bad about it. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, the Marine Corps is not really known for their politeness. I mean,
It's not that kind and gentle. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So what do you do when they discharge you? What do you do after that?
Kind of took me a minute to figure out which way was up. You know, I was still in school for photography, but at that time I didn't know if I wanted to keep doing that. And I was like, I don't know if I wanted to dig a financial hole that way and get a loan. But again, with misinformation, I realized I could have been using my GI Bill post discharge, but I didn't realize because nobody told me. Shame on me for not doing my own research. But at the time, I took it at face value for what some person said. So I was like, well, I don't get these benefits anymore. Let me figure my life out.
All right. So did you complete that degree program or just go to work, or what did you do?
Kind of just started going to work. I mean, I still kept training myself on the side, developing. It was always kind of a passion. And fast forward, it would turn up to be my actual job. I started a little LLC, but that wasn't until 2014. So I do professional photo work for people now.
Okay. So how were you making money then before you kind of set yourself up?
I was still working at UPS at the time,
Okay.
where I was when I enlisted, and they have a really good program of they're going to hold your spot for you.
Yeah.
It was unionized at the time. I don't know if it still is. It's been a while. But yeah, they held my position, so I was able to get back there, but it was just part-time.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting just juggling multiple jobs, figuring out what I wanted to do, and it was always like, I mean, with UPS, I didn't really stay there that much longer because of my back issues. They held my position, but I couldn't keep unloading trucks with my issues. So I got customer servicey, light, fluffy jobs. Did a lot of stuff in retail, and because it's not like I can go work construction with a bad back.
All right. So at what point do you kind of realize that you can get some benefits or start getting help from, the government?
It had to have been probably 2, maybe 3 years. Someone had said, well, what's your service rating? I said, I don't even know what that means. So finally someone had kind of encouraged me, go talk to the VA, get a claim going.
Yeah.
So now it's documented that this issue is their fault, so I can go to the VA and get health care, which is great. And then over the years, you kind of like, everything's assigned to like a percentage of how bad it is,
Right.
Which
So yeah.
took a minute to get there. They say, oh, you're at 20%. And at the time, I was like, cool, good enough. Like, I feel like it shouldn't take me 5-10 minutes to get out of bed every day because of the pain. But at the time, I was like, could have been worse. Some of these guys didn't come back. I don't want to take it away from them.
Okay.
So,
All right. But you eventually kind of did manage to move yourself in the direction. So now basically you're a professional photographer, videographer,
yeah.
that sort of thing. If you look back at the time that you spent in the Marines or that experience, what do you think you took out of it, or what did you learn from it?
Tenacity and how to not give up on things. Like, even though physically I had some trouble with things, like mentally and emotionally, I was able to say, well, this thing happened, how do we overcome that? The problem solving, the don't take no for an answer, and just, if there's a door that closed in your face, you figure out how to kick it open.
And do you have any idea how the back injury actually happened, or was it just wear and tear over time?
I think it was just wear and tear over time, because it wasn't like I fell off something or got wiped out or anything like that. Some people think, yeah, I fell off this truck at this time and they can pinpoint it. But with me, it was just like over time, I would get up and things would hurt, or if I would move just right, I noticed those instances becoming more frequent and more aggressive, to the point where if I moved my neck upward and left, my whole right leg would hurt. I could barely stand on it because of the pain and discomfort. And then finally someone's like, let's get you to medical. Let's take a look at this.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Now, have you gotten involved with any veterans groups and things since you've been out?
Yeah, actually, like 13 years after I was out, I ran into my recruiter. I had really no contact with him for a minute, because he ended up buying a treadmill that another good friend of mine who was not in the military was selling off of Facebook Marketplace. It was just a random, and they're chit-chatting, and my friend's like, hey, you're a recruiter, you probably enlisted my buddy Mike, and Kenny somehow still remembered me.
Okay.
And we still joke about it today. It's because when I was supposed to drive to MEPS to actually swear in and make it official, my tire blew out on my car, and he still picks on me. He's like, yeah, you were just trying to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I would have had a better excuse if I was going to dodge enlistment, man. But he's involved with a nonprofit group called 92 for 22. And they build awareness for like PTSD and veteran suicide. And at the time, I was like, well, I didn't do what I was supposed to do enlisted then. I could show up and use my veteran connections and kind of give back then, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that I would, it wasn't until then that I started healing from some of the emotional and mental stuff that I had dealt with. Like I never deployed, so I never thought I had the justification for having any kind of trouble, because it could be worse.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I showed up with these guys to help other veterans that I was able to look internally. So very grateful for that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in and sharing your story today.
Of course, thank you.